Everyone thought he would quit. After the VIN lock, they thought he would quit. After the $1.7 million repair estimate, they thought he would quit. After Mate Rimac made a 10-minute Instagram video explaining in detail why what he was attempting was impossible, they thought he would quit. After the chassis split challenge and the gearbox bracket failure and the radiator crisis and the warning light forest and the pyro fuse replacement on the first drive day and the second no from Bugatti about the BCM reset and every single wall that a billion-dollar manufacturer and the physics of rebuilding the most complex road car ever made could put in front of one man from Leicester, everyone thought he would quit. And the Bugatti Chiron Per Sport is nearly finished. Nearly. Actually. Genuinely. Verifiably nearly finished. And the people who thought he would quit are about to watch something that the automotive world has never seen before. Think about what nearly finished actually means in the context of this specific rebuild. Because nearly finished on a Bugatti Chiron Per Sport that was written off, given a salvage title, blacklisted by its own manufacturer, declared a total loss by a technician flown from France for that specific purpose, and publicly opposed by the CEO of the company that built it, is not the same as nearly finished on any other car. Nearly finished on this car means that every single one of those obstacles has been overcome. Every wall has been climbed. Every no has been answered with a solution that the person saying no never anticipated. And the car that everyone said would never drive outside Bugatti's authorized network has driven, has fired its W16 engine in a Miami workshop, has rolled under its own power with Matt Armstrong behind the wheel, is sitting right now in a state of completion that makes the finish line not just visible but reachable. And every single person who thought he would quit is watching it happen. Every single one of them. But before we go through exactly where the build stands right now and what remains between the current state and the fully road legal completed Bugatti Chiron Per Sport that this project is becoming, we need to take a moment to understand the full arc of what nearly finished represents. Because the distance between where this car started and where it is now is not a technical distance. It is a human one. It is the distance between a man who looked at a $4 million crashed hypercar on a Copart listing in October 2025 and decided he was going to fix it, and a man who has done exactly that against opposition so comprehensive and so public that the story was doing it has triggered legislative changes, attracted the personal attention of the FIA president, produced a statement of acknowledgement from the CEO of Lamborghini and Bugatti, and become the most significant automotive story told. On YouTube in the modern era, that distance, covered in months, on camera, without quitting, is what nearly finished means. The beginning of this build feels like a different era now, but it is worth revisiting with the specific clarity that hindsight provides. October 2025. Matt Armstrong hears about a crashed Bugatti Chiron Per Sport owned by Alex Gonzalez in Miami. The front end crumpled in a massive accident. Airbags deployed throughout the cabin. Headlights gone. Hood destroyed. Wings crumpled. The iconic Bugatti horseshoe grille that cost more than most people's cars shattered. Insurance quotes reaching $1.7 million for a factory repair. The car given a salvage title. Sent to Copart. And Alex Gonzalez, rather than accepting the write-off and walking away from what the insurance payout represented, buying it back, bringing in Matt Armstrong, making the decision that changed everything. That specific decision, made in Miami in October 2025 by a 24-year-old influencer who did not want the car that got away to get away, is a decision that started the story that is now approaching its conclusion. And the conclusion is nearly here. Bugatti's response to the rebuild announcement was the sequence of events that turned a private project into a global story. The VIN lock came first. The global instruction to every authorized Bugatti dealer on the planet that no parts were to be supplied for the specific car's vehicle identification number. A corporate barrier deployed with the full weight of a manufacturer that had decided this particular rebuild was a problem to be contained. Then came Mate Rimac's involvement. The CEO of Bugatti Rimac personally engaging with YouTube rebuild project, first through awareness. It later emerged that Rimac himself had been watching the project unfold, and then through action, the 10-minute Instagram video, the detailed technical argument about why the chassis could not be split outside two facilities in the entire world, why the parts could not be sourced independently, Why what Matt Armstrong was attempting was not just inadvisable, but genuinely unsafe. That video, made by one of the most respected technical minds in the automotive industry, was the highest wall Bugatti ever built against this rebuild. And Matt Armstrong climbed it with a rubbish bin. The chassis split is the moment that defined everything that followed, because Rimac's specific public authoritative claim that splitting the Chiron's chassis required specialized equipment available at only 2 facilities in the entire world was a claim that contained the most detailed technical argument for why the rebuild was impossible. And when Matt Armstrong's team separated the front and rear monocoques of the Bugatti Chiron per Sport in a workshop in Leicester using an improvised solution involving a rubbish bin, they did not just solve a technical problem. They destroyed the most compelling version of the impossible argument that Bugatti had made. And in destroying it publicly, in front of millions of people, they changed the terms of the entire conversation about what was and was not achievable outside the authorized network. The chassis split is where the build's possibility became undeniable. Everything that came after it was the proof. What came after was extraordinary. The discovery of the gearbox bracket, the aluminium component designed specifically to fail in a crash to redirect forces through the monocoque and protect the powertrain. Fractured, as designed. A brilliant piece of engineering that in this specific context became a sourcing problem of enormous difficulty because the replacement cost through official channels was astronomical and the official channels were locked. The TIG weld that specialists said was not possible was attempted and held. The CNC machining plan that turned the absence of an OEM component into an engineering project was developed and executed. The 10 radiators with their Honda Civic specification cores were custom built by Bob from a machine shop with 2 extra fins, each improving on the original specification. The Audi A3 airbags went in, not as a compromise, as applied knowledge of the Volkswagen Group supply chain. The Mercedes-Benz pyro fuse that Bugatti had installed themselves was replaced when it was triggered by the crash. The Lamborghini Gallardo fuse board cross-referenced in the parts database. The Porsche crash sensors identified and sourced. The Volkswagen Passat secondary air pump found. The 11-pound Amazon bolt ordered on Prime and fitted. 8 brands. 5 of them Bugatti's own supply chain decisions. All of it documented. All of it public. All of it permanent. And then the car started. And then the car drove. 7.7 million people in 4 days. Matt Armstrong behind the wheel. Blood leaving his feet as 1,500 horsepower went through the rebuilt transmission. The W16 engine running at operating temperature with the cooling system settling in the high 190s and low 200s as the fans engaged. The car that Bugatti declared impossible to rebuild independently moving under its own power in a Miami workshop yard, without a windshield with warning lights still showing from systems that had not yet completed their recalibration. Moving, driving, alive. And the nearly finish that describes the current state of this rebuild is the nearly finish of a car that has already done the hardest thing it was ever going to be asked to do, getting from destroyed to driving. What remains is bringing it from driving to driven legally. And legally is where the story currently lives. The interior of this car is complete. The custom one-off interior that Matt Armstrong commissioned to replace the cabin destroyed by airbag deployment and crash forces, and the months of disassembly that the rebuild required. Alcantara and leather and carbon fiber elements assembled into a configuration that exists nowhere else in the world, because it was made specifically for this car by people who cared about doing it right, not a factory restoration. Better than a factory restoration, because it was made with the specific intention of honoring what a Bugatti interior should be while adding the character of a build that was done by hand outside every official channel by someone who understood what the car deserved. The interior is done, and when you look at it, when you see what it has become from what it was, the transformation is one of the most specific and most visible pieces of evidence that this rebuild has been done at the standard the car demanded. The Valvetronic exhaust is fitted. The custom system that makes the W16 engine louder than the factory specification allows. More present. More itself. More what 16 cylinders and 4 turbochargers should sound like when they are not constrained by the noise regulations that road cars have to meet. The exhaust that Matt Armstrong commissioned because returning this car to its pre-crash specification was never the ceiling of what he wanted to achieve, because the ceiling was always the best possible version of what the specific car could be. And the best possible version of a Bugatti Chiron per Sport sounds different from the factory version. Louder, more dramatic, more honest about what is happening mechanically. The exhaust is fitted. And when this car drives on a public road for the first time with that exhaust fitted, and that W16 running, and that rebuilt interior surrounding the driver, the sound and the experience and the everything of it will be something that the people watching have been building toward in their imagination since the day Matt Armstrong bought a crash car on Copart and said he was going to fix it. What remains? The BCM reset, the body control module recalibration that requires proprietary tools that Bugatti has refused to provide, and that the EU right to repair legislation coming into force in July 2026 is going to make that refusal legally untenable. 83 days from now, the legal framework that permitted Bugatti's no on the BCM reset ceases to exist. And in the space between now and that deadline, Matt Armstrong is navigating the final technical and bureaucratic challenges that stand between a car that drives and a car that is road legal. The IVA preparation, the emissions compliance question for a U.S. specification car seeking UK road registration, the documentation trail that a vehicle of this history and this configuration requires to satisfy a regulatory inspector. All of it is being addressed. All of it is being documented on camera. And all of it is being watched by millions of people who have been on this journey from the beginning and who understand that the final obstacles are not going to stop a man who has already overcome every obstacle that came before them. Nearly finished. That is where we are. After the VIN lock and the parts refusal and the CEO video and the chassis split and the gearbox bracket and the radiator crisis, and the first fire, and the first drive, and the 8 brands, and the 7.7 million views, and the FIA President's awareness, and the Lamborghini CEO statement, and the Porsche exit from the $1.1 billion deal, and the EU directive, and